evening and welcome to Bloomberg Quint Live. I'm Alex Matthew. Well, it's been a volatile day of trade where the broader markets underperformed, but the big conversation today was the fraud at Punjab National Bank that came to light yesterday and that could involve as much as 11,000 crore rupees. So what did you miss? Let's get straight to the headlines. Punjab National Bank says that it will honour all bona fide commitments as investigative agencies probe the 11,000 crore rupee fraud at the bank. Indian benchmarks closed higher for the second time this week, with ICICI Bank and Infosys leading the gains. Wholesale prices rose at a slower pace in January, with food articles falling 2.4% last month. Road Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari says there is no need for an electric vehicles policy. CEO of Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, says that technology is ahead of rules as he ruled out the need for a policy on EVs. But let's get to the big story of the day. A day after Punjab National Bank disclosed that its staff had issued fraudulent letters of undertaking involving transactions worth approximately 11,000 crore rupees, a scuffle has apparently broken out among lenders over who will make good on the money. The LOUs allowed at least 3 companies linked to designer and jeweler Nirav Modi to raise short-term buyer's credit from international branches of a host of Indian banks. At a press briefing that was held a short while back, Punjab National Bank officials said that the bank would honour all bona fide commitments. Listen in.
We will honour all our bona fide commitments. हम अपने सभी bona fide commitments का honor करेंगे और हमारे जितने भी bankers हैं और साथी हैं जो stakeholders हैं उनके साथ जो हमारे commitments हैं that we will be able to honor. We are already in discussion with all the lenders. It will be decided based on the investigation. If the entire onus is ours, we will hold the responsibility. We are not going back from it. But nobody else can be a beneficiary of it. Total exposure, I don't have data right now, but then we have credit exposures in these 2 groups also.
So how much would that be, sir?
Credit exposure, our bank's credit exposure. Our bank credit exposure to these groups will be roughly 1,700.
Roughly 1,700.
They have not come out with any concrete plan to repay so far, but well, they are coming out with some vague offers which are under examination. He has not come to us personally. We have requested him to come personally to come and give us a written plan that how the way he is going to make out the offer.
When did you ask for a repayment plan from him?
Repayment plan, he gave us a formal message and we said, okay, you come out with a plan and we will be.
Well, some questions answered in that press conference there, but a lot remained unanswered. Meanwhile, the Mumbai Enforcement Directorate got cracking on its investigation into the fraud. The investigative agency has reportedly initiated search and seizure operations across 12 locations in the city, which includes residences of all the accused and Nirav Modi's offices. Gitanjali Gem's office is also being searched. This comes at a time when Nirav Modi has written to various bank officials seeking more time to repay his dues. Modi is not currently in the country. But what's keeping bankers on tenterhooks is who's going to honour the line of credit that was extended on the basis of the letters of undertaking issued by PNB. Vishwanath Nair joins in to tell us what some of these bankers have to say about honouring these letters of credit. Vishwanath, from my limited understanding of this, the final liability would lie with PNB. Is that right?
So according to what some of these former bankers as well as the current bankers are saying is that the money that was given out by these banks in the form of buyer's credit was given to Punjab National Bank's Nostro account. It was given on the basis of an LOU that clearly came from Punjab National Bank and a swift message that was delivered to the overseas branches of these banks through Punjab National Bank. So essentially they are saying that the commitment or the liability of repaying these bankers in the event of a default lies with Punjab National Bank. And as much, the MD and CEO of Punjab National Bank has also said that any bona fide commitments would be repaid in full. Of course, he didn't clarify what he considers bona fide, as such, the bank will also wait before some of these investigations that are initiated by the CBI and the RBI to be completed before they are able to determine what exactly is the amount that is overdue. The other bankers, however, are saying is that, of course, in PNB's cautionary note, which was put out on Monday, the bank had said that it's possible that there is some kind of connivance of these other bank employees who are working in these overseas branches, who worked with PNB's employees and these alleged borrowers to create some kind of foul play. The bankers, on their part, they're claiming that PNB is just trying to deflect the matter, and that potentially any kind of liability that lies on somebody to pay back, it lies only on PNB, and that they will collect that money in full. That's what we understand at this point, Alex.
Well, from what I can take from that, Vishy, a lot of unanswered questions, but I'm sure that we'll stay on top of that, and you will, and we'll bring our viewers all the updates therein. But let's turn to the markets now. Neeraj Shah is standing by with all the action that took place on Dalal Street today. Neeraj, the benchmark indices closed higher, but a lot of volatility today.
Well, India VIX was volatile in the session today, and that only summed up what the trade was like in trade. So just look at what happened to the key indices firstly. The Nifty and the Sensex optically ending about 0.4% higher, but not before they actually slipped back into the red midway through trade as well, just about when the PNB press conference was happening. Actually, the mid caps and the small caps couldn't even come back from there. So the broader markets had a fair bit of pain. The small cap index more so 1.5% lower. Banks were the center stage of all the action, and no surprise there. While the Nifty 50 ended in the green, PNB about 12% lower, and the Nifty Bank 2 ended marginally in the green, which was actually a good sign. But PNB dominated conversation for almost all day today. Contrasting fortunes for some of the private sector banks. Axis Bank ending flattish after having a volatile choppy day. ICICI Bank ending the day at the highest point of the day, up about 3%. So good recovery for this one in the session. It was a Metallica of sorts. A clutch of metal names did very well. On the index, we had Hindalco and Vedanta doing extremely well. So good going. These were amongst the top 5 gainers on the Nifty today. Of course, BPCL helped as well, and that stock ended almost at the day's highs, crept up in the last 45 minutes of trade. So good going for BPCL in the session today as well. Moving on to the broader end of the spectrum, just a very few pockets that I want to mark really aside of all that happened in the Nifty. Yes, the broader end of the spectrum, there were stocks in the mid-cap space, in the oil and gas space, which did okay, but a lot of pain in the NBFC pocket in particular, and that's something you need to watch out for. Some winners included stocks like Bombay Dyeing and Delta Corp, which ended at the day's highs, so good going for these names, but by and large, the broader markets had a fair take of red.
Thanks so much for that, Neeraj. Well, that sums up very accurately what happened in trade today, but if you missed some of that, you can look at the blog on the website bloombergquint.com for all the updates of trade today. But we've come to the end of the third quarter earnings season. Did India Inc. show green shoots of much awaited recovery, or is there a long way to go still for a meaningful pickup? Darshan Mehta is standing by with the Q3 earnings scorecard. Darshan, all but Ambuja have come out with their quarterly numbers. So what was the performance like?
So if you look at the numbers, what has happened, it's been an inline performance because these are 49 companies that have come out with numbers. Ambuja is missing. 24 of them, almost half of them have come out with numbers inline. The weak numbers are much more, 13, and the strong numbers are 12. So it's been an inline set of quarters, nothing, it's no big outperformance that has happened. And clearly if you see the trend, what we saw was the green line, that is the strong numbers. From the fourth quarter last year, it's coming down to from 23 to 13 to 16. And now just 12, and look at the inline numbers, and they have steadily increased from 15 all the way to 24. So the era of outperformance has actually gone off. It is becoming a quarter which pretty much comes in line with what is expected. Now, if you're looking at this is basically the heat map. Ambuja is the one that's not come out with numbers, but here you get a pretty good sense of what's happening. So all the greens are the strong numbers. Yellow, which is basically the IT, the FMCG, the banks, all of them came in line with numbers, in line with estimates. And the red one is some of the banks, the pharma stocks, some of the auto stocks. That is what you see. And then the green side, you have, the oil marketing companies that did well. Now, some of the counters which exceeded performance. So Coal India, the last 3 quarters was very weak. But the third quarter, they came out with a strong set of numbers. Bharti Infratel, Bosch and HPCL. Again, the trend has actually moved on the positive side. What has moved on the negative side were counters like Ultratech, 3 quarters of strong performance, and finally a disappointment. ICICI, SBI and Airtel came out with weak set of numbers after having satisfactory performance in the last 3 quarters. So this is the general trend that we are seeing now.
But Darshan, if we break it down sectorally, how does the picture look then?
Okay, sector-wise, let's talk about agri first, because UPL is the only company in the agri space at this point of time, and that actually managed to disappoint significantly, mainly on account of two factors. There was volatile weather in Latin America and high pricing pressure, and that put the brakes on UPL, which was down almost 8 to 10% post the numbers. The second part is the auto space, and Auto Ank did well. You had Bosch, which did well, but on the two-wheeler side, while Hero and Eicher were in line, Bajaj Auto disappointed, and on the four-wheelers, Maruti was in line, while Tata Motors disappointed. M&M was also in line. For cement companies, Ultratech was a big disappointment. Higher input cost hits the operational performance. Ambuja, the second cement counter, is yet to report numbers here. As far as L&T was concerned, only company in the construction space, strong order inflow, guidance was strong, results were strong, so it was a decent quarter for them. FMCG came out with an inline set of numbers. The volume growth was strong for HUL and Asian Paints, while it was muted for ITC, which saw negative volume growth on the cigarette front. Oil companies, mixed bag. On the upstream companies, ONGC disappointed because of higher operating cost, while on Reliance, Jio and Petchem did well. Refining was didn't do well. Oil marketing companies, HPCL and IOC did well, while BPCL, lower inventory and weak marketing were the reasons why numbers did not match up to the expectation. Banks, inline set of numbers except for SBI and ICICI, which disappointed on the earning front and the asset quality front. The NBFCs, the housing finance companies, Bajaj Finance, your HDFC, your India Bulls Housing Finance, all of them came out with strong set of numbers. We also have the metal, the IT numbers. In line, nothing much to talk about, came in line with estimates, guidance was maintained. In fact, the mid-cap IT did better than the large cap this time out. Metal, Tata Steel and Coal India, outperformance after a while. Strong domestic performance from Tata Steel and Coal India, as we pointed out, after 3 weak quarters. Coal India has come out with a better set of numbers on higher e-auction and volumes. And finally, healthcare, was a low base, that's why the numbers seem decent, but inline set of numbers except for Lupin, which disappointed, and Sun Pharma, Taro hurt them significantly. So overall, if you look at the numbers, it's been a quarter which has come in line with estimates, but outperformance clearly not been seen.
Thanks so much for that, Darshan. And very soon we'll have to move to Q4 with PQ, and do stay tuned with us till then. But moving on to the ongoing tussle between Indian bosses and their foreign peers, the Singapore Stock Exchange is said to have told its clients that they can continue trading in Nifty options contract for at least another 18 months. This comes after the National Stock Exchange had said that it's going to discontinue sharing of data from the end of July. Sajid Mangat is here with all the details there. Sajid, sorry about that. Sajid, how will the SGX source the settlement data, and what are the products that will be on offer for the next 18 months?
So, Alex, you know what National Stock Exchange has done is it's terminated its contract with the Singapore Exchange, and as part of the termination clause, it is supposed to give Singapore Exchange 6 months before the entire contracts get or before the data can be stopped for the Singapore Exchange. But the contract clause also, we understand from sources, include that if there are any existing contracts which are in play beyond the period of termination, then NSE would be supporting that those contracts with the settlement data, and that is what is being conveyed by Singapore Exchange to all its clients, that there is a continuity of India products beyond August, and it may go up to March 2019 and even to June 2019. And the reason being that in Singapore, you already have futures and options of Nifty which is getting traded, and aside of that, you have MSCI India futures which gets traded there. Now, if the last contract of the futures is somewhere in July, so there will be a 3 months additional contracts which will come in, which is August, September, October. So October may be the last month for the futures, but in the case of options, the contracts are already issued up to March 2019. The agreement between both the sides allowed them to issue nearest month's contract and quarterly month contract, and that means that March 19 contracts are already been issued, and come June 2018 they can issue another contract which is of June 2019, and beyond that they won't be able to do that. So So this is what the argument which has been presented by Singapore Exchange. The exchange hopes that in the next 1 year or 12 months, it is already in discussion with NSE with respect to a connect or trading link between India and Singapore, and the one being in India at IFSC, which is in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and that trading link will help ensure that the continuity which has been which is there in Singapore Exchange can be gradually moved to onshore in IFSC. But this is something which is again getting which is in a discussion stage. It's too early to say whether such a connectivity will happen or not, but this for now it's a 12 to 18 months continuity which has been promised by the Singapore Exchange to its clients.
Well, thanks so much for that, Sajid. Of course, another developing story, and we'll bring you all the updates as and when we get them. But let's look at another sector that's not represented on the Nifty, but is fast gaining significance, and that, of course, is the aviation space. Among the three listed players, Indigo and SpiceJet managed to deliver a strong quarter, but the same can't be said about Jet Airways. Sumit Sarkar analyzes the key takeaways from the aviation earnings in this report.
So I'll start off with the revenue per available seat kilometer for the airline companies. Now this has increased for all the airline companies, and the highest growth has come in from Indigo. Indigo's revenue per available seat kilometer compared to the last quarter has increased 10%, while that of SpiceJet has increased 9%. And when you see of Jet Airways, it has remained subdued but has increased to by 1.4%. Now this growth is mainly on the back of passenger growth and because of higher average fare. Now speaking of average fare, now the average fare earned by the airline companies in the third quarter has increased for Indigo and SpiceJet. Now Indigo's average fare compared to the last year has increased by 7%, while that of SpiceJet has increased by 9%. Now Jet Airways average fare declined by 1.5%. This is mainly because of a weak international business of Jet Airways. That's the reason we have seen this decline in the average fare for Jet Group. Now if you see on the cost side, the cost per available seat kilometer for all the three listed airline companies has increased compared to the last year. Now this is mainly because of higher aviation turbine fuel prices. Now aviation turbine fuel prices on an average in the third quarter have increased by around 13% compared to the last year. So you can see an increase in their cost per available seat kilometer. Indigo's has gone up by 4%, Jet Group by 2.6%, and that of SpiceJet by 8%. Now if you remove this fuel cost and check the other cost, then that parameter, Jet has outperformed. Now Jet's cost per available seat kilometer excluding fuel cost has declined by 2.6%, and you can see it has declined consistently, and this is the 5th consecutive month where we have seen a decline in the total cost, while that of Indigo and SpiceJet, if you see, it is increased by 2% and 4%. Lastly, the core profit, that is revenue minus cost per available seat kilometer. Now this has improved for all the three listed airline companies, but for Jet Airways it has still remained negative. For Indigo, if you see, it has come up from 0.4 in the last quarter, that's 0.4 rupees, to 0.7 rupees in this quarter. For SpiceJet, it has increased from 0.3 rupees to 0.5 rupees, and for Jet Airways, it has improved from negative 0.07 to 0.05 in the third quarter of financial year 2018.
Well, shifting focus to the economy now, wholesale price inflation for the month of January has eased to 2.84% from 3.58% in December. An easing of food and food articles inflation helped rein in WPI last month. Wholesale food inflation has come in at 1.65% compared with 2.91% in the earlier month, and food articles inflation is at 3% as against 4.72% in December. Core inflation, though, rose to 3.5% from 3.1% in December, and among the other sectors, manufactured product prices rose 2.78%, those of fuel and power rose 4.08%, and prices of primary articles by 2.37% in January. The inflation reading for November was revised higher to 4.02% from 3.93%. Another update in the automobile space, Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, has ruled out the need for an electric vehicles policy for India. His comments come at a time when the automakers want the government to come up with a clear plan for electric vehicles. The CEO of Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, has concurred. He said that technological innovations are taking place already in the automobile space, And he said that the government is making an action plan on EVs, which will be given to all the ministries.
अब क्या बाकी रहा है? जो साहब ने किया अभी सब ओपन हो गया, अभी कोई पॉलिसी की जरूरत नहीं। देखिए ऐसा है एक्शंस चाहिए। हमने जैसे स्टार्टअप की किया था, पॉलिसी नहीं बनाई थी, हमने सारे एक्शन प्लान बना दिया। एक्शन प्लान बना के हर मिनिस्ट्री अपना अपना एक्शन कार्रवाई करना शुरू कर दी है और हम लोग ओवरऑल उसको मॉनिटर कर रहे हैं। पॉलिसी की ऐसी कोई ज़रूरत है ही नहीं।
Interesting comments coming in there from those state government functionaries, because a lot of people at the Auto Expo were speaking about the need for an electric vehicle policy. But moving on to some international news, and shocking news came in earlier today of another mass shooting in the US. At least 17 people have died in a shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Authorities have arrested the gunman. He is a 19-year-old former student of the school. President Trump has offered federal assistance to the state of Florida, and he also tweeted, and I quote, "Just spoke to Governor Rick Scott. We are working closely with law enforcement on the terrible Florida school shooting." In more news from the US, the US Senate has tentatively agreed on a trimmed-down immigration proposal last night. The approved proposal would allow citizenship for young undocumented immigrants and provides $25 billion for a border wall. However, the proposal will not address Trump's demand for cuts in family migration and an end to a diversity visa lottery. In news from Africa, South African President Jacob Zuma stepped down on the back of mounting corruption charges. Cyril Ramaphosa will take charge as the interim president before his election to the parliament. South African President Zuma said he decided to resign with immediate effect as he doesn't want the South African National Congress to be divided. Listen in.
No life should be lost in my name, and also the ANC should never be divided in my name. I have therefore come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect.
Well, Warren Buffett's conglomerate Berkshire Hathaway reported that it has cut its stake in IBM by 94% during the fourth quarter of 2017, essentially drawing to a close a rare blemish on the ACE investors' record. Bloomberg's Corey Johnson and Tom Giles have this report. Listen in.
I just pulled up this thing on the IBM on my Bloomberg terminal. I want to show it to you and to our viewers, which it shows what happened to IBM stock while Buffett was building his position. So if you look over here on the left, you see Buffett increases his position. That's the green line. As the stock's around here, unlike many Warren Buffett holdings, the stock didn't go up while he held it. It went down.
It went the wrong way.
Yeah.
He held it during a really rough period in the IBM story. After Ginny Rometty took over from her predecessor, Palmisano, she really tried to right the ship. She changed some of the ways that they were doing things. The buyback slowed down. She really tried to invest in making this a provider of cloud computing services and getting away from the old IBM mainframes, services, hardware, etc. She's come a long way, but it happened very, very slowly. It's a big ship, and you don't turn a big ship overnight.
I think you're being too nice. I've never been accused of that, at least sitting in this chair. I looked at that holding when he took it and thought, this is a company who's... I was meeting with a CEO of an investment banking firm, an important investment banking firm. It was off the record meeting this morning, and we happened to talk about IBM. Right. And we all laughed around the table. We said, yeah, shrinking revenues and rising earnings per share, who's going to fall for that? Warren Buffett fell for that?
Of all people. And this is a guy who for many years avoided technology, feeling like, I want to leave that to people who know more about it. He wanted, traditionally he invested in things that you understand, that I get. McDonald's, for example, is one of the notable investments.
But he also has owned American Express, and he's owned a lot of Wells Fargo. So he's been in all kinds of things.
Things that he understood, and Berkshire Hathaway understood. Tech they avoided, although they've been changing that. You know, big holder of Apple lately.
Right.
So he's definitely changed his tune in that regard. And Charlie Munger told Bloomberg a while back, you know, that aversion to technology might have been one of our biggest mistakes. And for some of these companies, they were absolutely right.
Last thing I'll say about it, IBM's profits in this time went from $16 billion a year to $6 billion a year. IBM is a worse company than it was when Buffett first got involved, even though his investment didn't do terribly.
But they're showing signs of life.
Well, that just goes to show that even Warren Buffett can get it wrong. But moving on, China is celebrating its Lunar New Year. That's its biggest holiday. There are some traditions that you probably never heard of. Bloomberg caught up with Michelin star chef Andrew Wong to understand some of the top Chinese New Year food superstitions. Take a look.
I'm Andrew Wong. I'm a chef at Restaurant Les Wong in London. And here are 5 Chinese food traditions that you may not know. Fish. So fish is a very traditional food which is eaten during Chinese New Year. The word for fish, which is yu, sounds like the word for abundance, which is yu. Noodles, normally we're referred to as longevity noodles, and it's extremely bad luck to have the noodles cut, as it's symbolic of a shortening of life. Dumplings. Again, another food that are eaten a lot during the celebrations of New Year. They're thought to resemble gold ingots, which obviously are a symbolization of wealth and prosperity. Seeds, traditionally more a symbol of a good harvest. However, nowadays it's more of a symbol of fertility and bringing in an extension into your family. Mandarins. The word for mandarin in Chinese sounds like the word for gold, which is a symbol of wealth and prosperity. So Happy New Year to everyone, or in China, as we say Gong Hei Fat Joy.
Well, I can't say that in Chinese, but I can certainly say Happy New Year to everyone in that part of the world. But that's all we have for you on this show. There's a lot more coming up over the course of the day, though, so do stay tuned. Thanks for watching. This is Bloomberg Quint.